Hi my lovely hi, welcome back. Simon Cowell has discovered global stars and shaped pop culture for decades. But nothing prepared him, or us, for the voice of a shy teenage girl named Courtney Hadwin. When she walked on the America's Got Talent stage in season 13, she looked nervous. But seconds later, she unleashed a voice so raw, so electric, it stunned the world, and even left Simon speechless. Now, years later, at 65, Simon Cowell has finally broken his silence on that unforgettable performance. And this time, there were no cold critiques or sharp remarks, just tears and a heartfelt confession from the man who rarely shows emotion. So, what did Simon really think of Courtney Hadwin? And what was it about her that moved him to tears after all these years? Stay with me, because what you're about to hear will completely change the way you see both of them. Teachers at Shotton Hall Academy began noticing something different. Courtney Hadwin wasn't just another student with a hobby, she was a spark in human form. During school performances, she didn't just sing, she transformed. It wasn't about attention. It was as if music unlocked a hidden part of her soul. And that voice, raspy, powerful, haunted by the ghosts of rock legends. People couldn't believe it was coming from a 12-year-old girl. On local stages, she wasn't just performing, she was channeling something deeper. Something timeless. Even then, the whispers began. Who is this girl? How is this even possible? Now, years later, Simon Cowell, the man known for his cold stare and brutal honesty, has finally spoken. And for the first time, his voice trembled. What he said about Courtney Hadwin stopped everyone in their tracks. Why now? What made him emotional? Keep watching, because what you're about to hear will give you chills. People who were there at the time remember how her voice seemed to cut through the air with a confidence that didn't match her shy personality. It was one of those times when you could almost hear people asking each other, who is this girl? Because no one thought that shy-looking child would have that much stage presence. After that, Courtney wasn't just a student or a girl from a small town, she was a rising star with something to say. Her big break came in 2017 when she strode into the whole country on The Voice Kids UK. She chose to audition with Tina Turner's Nutbush City Limits, a song that demands toughness and confidence, and she nailed it. The judges were blown away, and Danny Jones from McFly, who would later become her coach, took her under his wing and helped her get to the finals. She didn't win the title, but what she did get was probably more important. She showed that she could hold her own against the best young talent in the country. People not only noticed her, but they remembered her. What stood out wasn't her vocal range or technical skill, but how she changed. As soon as the music started, viewers saw a shy young girl turn into a force of nature. It wasn't an act or practiced charisma, it felt real, and that's what made her different now. Here's where the story really takes off. In 2018, Courtney, who was only 13, chose to set even higher goals. She tried out for America's Got Talent, which was probably the most important stage she'd ever been on. Anyone who watched her audition could tell she was nervous. She looked uncertain, even a little overwhelmed. But then Otis Redding's Hard to Handle started playing, and what happened next shocked everyone in the room. The shy teenager was gone, and in her place was a rock and soul hurricane. Her voice, her moves, her energy, it all hit at once like a lightning bolt, and everyone was on their feet. Howie Mandel, clearly stunned, slammed the golden buzzer right away. In his words, she reminded him of Janis Joplin. He even said she was born in the wrong age, and he wasn't the only one who thought that. How could someone so young so easily channel the rawness and emotion of a bygone generation? For many, that moment proved it. Each of her acts on the show added to that story. Whether she was singing James Brown's Papa's Got a Brand New Bag or Born to Be Wild in its entirety, Courtney wasn't just singing covers, she was living them. She didn't have a flashy or overly rehearsed stage presence, instead, it felt like she was letting something deep inside take over. She ended up coming in 6th place, but let's be honest, winning wasn't the point. Her time on the show did something more important. it started a conversation about who was this girl with the voice of a legend and where she would go from here. It didn't take long to find out. After her audition aired, it went viral, not just a few shares on social media, hundreds of millions of. Her audition clip went viral and quickly got over 310 million views, making it one of the most watched performances in AGT history. Millions of people from all over the world watched, rewatched, and shared her video. Was it her voice that captivated them, or was it the rare sense of authenticity that felt almost impossible to find in the polished world of reality TV? Probably both. The music industry took notice, and in December 2018, just a few months after her AGT journey ended, Courtney signed a record deal with. That move, by Arista Records and Simon Cowell's Psycho Music label, said a lot. These weren't just talent scouts taking a chance on her, they were a major music powerhouse endorsing her. They saw what millions of people already knew: Courtney Hadwin wasn't just a flash in the pan or a viral moment, she was the real deal. From that point on, her career only went from strength to strength. In 2019, she competed on America's Got Talent, The Champions, once again wowing the crowd with her signature mix of soulful grit and. Courtney was able to stay in touch with a loyal and quickly growing fan base thanks to her growing social media presence. Her followers weren't just casual fans, they saw something unique in her and wanted to be a part of the ride. They liked that she didn't try to follow trends or be someone else, she stayed true to herself and sang the kind of music that made her bones shake. She turned a corner when she quit the big lights and promises of a major record label and went it alone. Taglines: Hey Courtney Hadwin. Yes, the teenage star who lit up America's Got Talent made a choice that would quietly change her entire musical future. It wasn't a decision she made in an instant, nor was it based on fame or money. It was about something much deeper and more personal: creative freedom. Isn't that what every real artist really wants? At the end of the day, Courtney's gritty voice and electrifying performances once stunned the world and made Simon Cowell do a double take. The band's Psycho Music and Arista Records, it looked like the dream deal for any up-and-coming musician, but things weren't as good as they seemed. In a recent interview, she was honest about her early years and said she had been through a lot of problems since she was 13. Imagine being that young and trying to deal with not only growing up but also the often soul-crushing machinery of the music business. She said that after going through a couple of record deals, she finally came to the painful realization that she needed to quit. Realized that the labels didn't know what to do with her, they couldn't figure her out, and instead of taking the time to develop her unique voice, they tried to fit her into a cookie-cutter pop mold. Isn't that the classic story of talented artists being told they're too different to sell? One thing that really stuck with her was how her song Monsters was treated. She wrote it in 2019 or 2020, pouring her heart and soul into it, but the label rejected it in what seemed like a standard way. Someone telling you that your art isn't useful because it doesn't fit into someone else's idea of success must have been hard to hear because it wasn't pop enough. But Courtney didn't back down, she started to rethink everything. She wasn't going to keep making music to meet expectations that weren't even hers, so she did the brave thing and went independent. No more executives, no more compromising, and no more letting someone else decide what her voice should sound like. In February, she released her first album. In 2023, she released Breakable, her first truly independent single. She was very proud of it and said, "It's all me for this one, completely independent, finally doing it my way." After that, she didn't just dip her toes into independence, she dove right in. In 2023, she dropped single after single, including Girl Don't Live Here in April, Call Me Back in July, Monsters in September, and Christmas Rocks in November. Each one was a personal statement that said, "This is me." Not cleaned up or filtered by anyone else's standards. Not working with corporations but with real people who understood her was a big part of this new chapter. One of those people was Kevin Bowe, an experienced songwriter and producer she met during her time of self-discovery. Together, they went through songs that had been thrown out like yesterday's trash and, surprise, found monsters. They decided to bring it back to life as soon as I became independent, she said. Me and Kevin jumped into that rubbish pile to bring the song back out to play. We loved it so much. It's funny how some of the best things come back to you when you finally believe in them again. The fans didn't just nod politely, they cheered her on with open arms. The monsters that label executives once brushed off ended up reaching number 19 on Billboard's Hard Rock Digital Song Sales chart in October 2023. That's not just a personal win, it's a poetic one as well. It shows that people want music with heart, not just tunes that are in style at the moment. The fans' loyalty has been perhaps the most beautiful part of her journey. Courtney has been quick to say that she wouldn't have the fans she does now without America's Got Talent. That's where many of her fans got their start, and they've stuck with her through all of her journeys, from TV stages to corporate boardrooms to home recording studios. Isn't that the kind of fan loyalty every artist dreams of? Right now she's working on what might be her most personal project yet, her debut album, Little Miss Jagged, which is set to come out on September 12, 2025. She's putting all of her passion, experiences, and unique style, her voice, which combines the power of rock, the emotion of soul, the groove of blues, and the catchiness of pop, into it. So what's the point? Courtney Hadwin didn't just make it through She found a way to do well in spite of everything. She reminded everyone that you don't need a record label's stamp of approval to be real and that sometimes leaving the biggest stage is what gives you the space to build your own. Isn't that the most powerful kind of success? We've seen Simon Cowell give the harshest criticisms on live TV, but today, at age 65, he's crying over Courtney Hadwin. What's the real story between them? Did he have regrets, secrets, or something to say that he just couldn't? Don't miss a second because by the end, everything will have changed, the emotional reunion and Simon's reaction at 65 years old. After years of quiet distance and unspoken tension, Simon Cowell and Courtney Hadwin finally met again in March 2025 at a charity event in London. The event caught many by surprise, but those who had followed Courtney's journey since her big break on America's Got Talent when she was 13 years old felt like it was almost inevitable. It was impossible to ignore the emotional weight of that meeting. Simon Cowell, the famously tough and unflinching music mogul who is now 65 years old, was clearly holding back tears as he watched his former protégé perform a set of raw, powerful original songs from her now independent catalog. It wasn't just nostalgia filling the room, it was something deeper that had been building for years beneath the surface. But what exactly led to this unexpected and deeply human moment? It turns out that it was the first crack in the wall of. Early in 2025, rumors started going around that Courtney had been in a serious car accident. The news turned out to be false, but it was enough to scare Cowell into reaching out after almost 3 years of not talking to her. According to people close to the situation, it wasn't just a show of respect or a PR stunt, it was out of genuine concern. Simon hadn't talked about the breakup in years, but the thought of Courtney being hurt made him understand how much. He later spoke to the press at a small conference, and his voice cracked as he said, "Watching Courtney forge her own path has been both painful and inspiring." This showed that he was still feeling upset. That admission from a man known for being in charge and controlling said a lot more than the words themselves. Of course, there was another moment that night at the charity event that helped bring everything into focus. Courtney sang "Monsters," a haunting and emotionally rich song that Simon's label had once released. The irony wasn't lost on anyone in the audience, not even Cowell himself. As he listened to her pour her heart into the lyrics, something changed in him. After the show, he talked to reporters again, and this time he said something that sounded a lot like humility. "Sometimes, even after decades in this business, I get it wrong." Her instincts had been proper all along, coming from a man with many years of enterprise experience and a recognition for being almost unshakable. That announcement carried more weight than any sparkling evaluation should. However, possibly the most touching part of this tale wasn't pretty much the tune or the general public statements it changed into approximately the entirety that came before. Their professional courting had been something but clean from the moment young Courtney walked onto the AGT stage, all nerves and power vocals to the years that followed under Cowell's label. They Had struggled to live on the equal page creatively. Cowell, ever the perfectionist, had an imaginative and prescient Courtney, while a teen had her very own thoughts, ones that didn't usually align with what his label wanted to market. Through the years those variations became divides. Subsequently the communique stopped altogether, but as Cowell later reflected, what made me emotional wasn't just her increase as an artist, it became recognizing that on occasion stepping back is the finest gift you could deliver someone with fantastic expertise. Isn't that a lesson all of us learn at some point, whether or not in commercial enterprise, friendship, or circle of relatives? Occasionally the maximum loving thing we can do is allow someone grow without us, and in this example it seems that's exactly what took place. Courtney went directly to construct her career on her personal phrases, liberating formidable style blending song that didn't conform to industrial expectations but alternatively resonated with a fiercely loyal fan base. Meanwhile Simon persisted, shaping expertise throughout worldwide franchises, but Courtney remained that one what if within the back of his mind. Certainly whilst the footage in their emotional reunion hit social media, it exploded and fanatics did not maintain lower back their critiques. Both some praised Simon for displaying vulnerability and owning his beyond decisions, others weren't as forgiving, still shielding of the independent artist Courtney had become without him. One viral remark captured the temper flawlessly, from discovering her to doubting her to crying over her achievement without him. This is boom on each facets. Within the days that accompanied there was no assertion of a brand new collaboration or a dramatic public reconciliation excursion, and perhaps that become for the first class. The energy of that night failed to come from an enterprise deal, it came from a moment of emotional honesty that does not want a sequel. Nonetheless, one cannot help however wonder, will they paintings collectively once more sooner or later? Ought to this be the start of something new, not as a redo however as a next chapter? Simon Cowell cried. Courtney Hadwin soared, and for one night time at the least their paths crossed once more in a manner that felt now not just ancient however deeply human. With this we've come to the give up of this video. Thank you for watching. In case you enjoyed this video, do nicely to love, comment and subscribe for extra content material. To enjoy extra thrilling memories, click now on the following video that pops up to your display.